Uh, regulatory uncertainty. Yes. Why does regulatory uncertainty come about? Perhaps it's a cultural problem that once there is a law, not everybody, not every stakeholder is necessarily committed to the implementation of the law. There's something like, Adam Smith wrote his famous book, The Wealth of Nations, an inquiry into the cause of wealth of nations in 1776. Sometime, I think in the 1970s or early 70s perhaps, Gunnar Myrdal wrote The Asian Drama, an inquiry into the cause of poverty of nations. And one of the points that Gunnar Myrdal mentions in that tome of his is, I think he's the person who coined this expression of a soft state. That is, laws are made, but laws are never meant to be implemented. You can get away by not implementing the law. Now, what happens if the principal actors, like what happens if a state government doesn't implement the law? We have no question, no answer. Mr. Ray mentioned, there are today a number of regulatory commissions without a chairperson or without a member. The Electricity Act provides a mechanism by which literally 3 months before the term or of a member expires, processes have to be set in place. A selection committee has to be formed consisting of a judge and chief secretary and one other member, and the new person should be in position. In Maharashtra, we have functioned as a 2-member commission for 2 years and 8 months. Finally, how come a 3rd member got appointed? When somebody approaches the High Court on a public interest litigation, asks for a writ of mandamus, and then the state government acts. And this is not peculiar to 1 or 2 states. Today, if we make a list, in a large number of states, the commission's full membership doesn't exist. Now, I'm giving that as an example. When the state itself doesn't comply with its law, then what is the remedy? That's an extreme example of a soft state. Second is, Mr. Ray talked about unbundling. But even in states where unbundling have happened, the unbundling is only in form, not in substance. Let's take Maharashtra. MSEB has been unbundled into Mahagenco, Mahatransco, Mahadiscom. But there is also a holding company. And the energy minister is the chairman of the holding company. The 3 companies, Mahagenco, Mahatransco, Mahadiscom, the board only carries out whatever decisions are taken in the holding company. So the unbundling is only in form, not in substance. Each and every decision of the state discom, after they have become companies under the Company Act, there is absolutely no difference between, that is, the board is in between, chairman, part-time chairman were appointed for each of these companies. Even that was found irksome, they were all removed. Because, so this is another important thing to realize, that even though unbundling has happened, the state and the state will like to use, the state government, when I say it's the state government will like to utilize the state discom as an agent to carry out its policies. The scheme of the Electricity Act is such that what in the morning session I called as equity issues is covered only under one provision of the Act, which is Section 65 of the Electricity Act. It says the state can provide a subsidy or provide any benefits to a class of consumers. Like in Maharashtra, facilities provided to agriculture and to power looms. But all states have revenue deficits in the budget. So the state is not able to utilize 65 effectively to take care of equity issues. So the only method by which the show can go on is the state and the DISCOM working like in the old days. So the real problem with the Electricity Act is some of the important players in the Electricity Act, including state governments, there are two possibilities. One is, as Dr. Pramod Dev said, the role perception is not effective. I believe no, that's not the issue. They understand the role, but Indian politics, because of its, I don't blame anybody, India is an extremely plural society. So reforms in India take place through deceit, deception, and camouflage. It does not take place through articulation. Everything is like flying a kite or a balloon. If things work out, people say, yes, I suggested this. If things don't work out, I told you so. So this kind of a dichotomy where you want to satisfy the maximum number of people in a very plural society is played through this. It is not done by articulation. It's not the way Margaret Thatcher brought about change in the United Kingdom, where it was articulated again and again by the Prime Minister. Now, it doesn't happen in India. That's not the way politics is done in India. That's not the way consensus is built. So I think the problems with regulatory uncertainty also comes from that. I'll just make one more point and close it. The only method by which we can function is everybody involved should take a commitment that they'll implement the law. Of course, we all take a commitment and take an oath to the Constitution of India. But you're able to get away by showing lack of commitment to the implementing a law. And there is no punishment for that. I'll just leave by saying, in the last 4 years, a great experiment was tried in Mumbai, where there are two private sector companies in the suburbs of Mumbai. Reliance, Mr. Mehta is sitting here, and Tata. Because of a certain judgment, I won't go into that, because of a litigation which went right up to the Supreme Court over a period of 6-7 years. Supreme Court ruled that both these, rather Tata also has a license to supply in the retail. And sometime in 2009, again to cut a long story short, the MERC took the view that choice is the first step to competition. Right at that time, we knew choice is not competition. But there is a certain empowerment to the consumer when the consumer knows, I can choose. I can either go to him or to him. After doing that, in the first phase it worked. After that, the remaining 3 years, everything has not been completed. It is still work in progress. We have only been doing corrective action. So anybody who is interested in separation of content and carriage, etc., should learn from Indian experiences. There are problems which Dr. Pramod Dev also mentioned, that till agriculture is sorted out, separation of content and carriage will not solve the problems. There are deeper problems. A third uncertainty, regulatory uncertainty, comes from the simple fact that if you see the today's situation and the goal which the Electricity Act mandates you to take, let's say 10, 15, 20 years down the line, it is dismantling the DISCOMs. Now, dismantling a DISCOM which is totally supported by the state government, how do you do it? That's the problem.